Welcome to Surviving Saturday, a podcast about finding hope in the midst of life's disappointments.
We resonate with the powerlessness that Jesus' first followers experienced as they waited between his crucifixion on Friday and his rising on Sunday morning.
We feel led to bring light and goodness into a world that aches and wonders when relief will come.
Here you'll find no easy answers, just honest conversations about actual pain through the lens of a suffering God.
I'm Wendy Osborne, a licensed counselor based in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And I'm her husband, Chris, a counseling intern and family law mediator.
Join us as we wait together for more. Welcome back. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Wendy.
We are here today with Jay Stringer, author and psychotherapist. Hi, Jay.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Wendy. So good to be with you all. Thanks for having me.
So good to have you. You are in frigid New York, correct?
Frigid New York at this point, preparing for a blizzard of some kind. So
yes,
you all will probably get some snow coming too, right?
We're looking at ice. It has downgraded from winter watch to ice storm warning.
Much to your disappointment.
Much to my disappointment. But we do have two kids in Brooklyn that I will be living vicariously through.
Yes.
To hopefully enjoy. Okay, so
I
Jay,
think I got the last two sleds into Manhattan. So I was like doing every single website I could find, from like Target to Amazon to Walmart Plus to everything, and found two.
Done.
But I think that my kids should be pretty happy with me.
Well done.
Oh my
You've got
gosh.
some points now.
You are bringing back memories
so.
of because there were even sleds are harder to come by in Charlotte, North Carolina, as you can imagine, because it's so rare. And then when it comes, oh my gosh, here it is, and there's a complete run, and we have a lot fewer options. So I'm glad to know it spreads all over the place.
No, it's like that when you hear a heat wave is going to come in, it's like, okay, it's coming a week later. If I need a box fan or some type of, I need to order it right when the news comes out, because there are no sleds on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or so.
We came to learn that trash can lids can be a good sled if it's deep enough.
But in Manhattan, we have no. I mean, we don't.
You're right. You do not have no. That's right. You have piles and you have big bins. Yes.
But you know when the trash
we could find cardboard.
Right.
When the trash out on the street gets snow covered, if it gets snow covered enough, you got some nice moguls to work with, though.
That's true.
Moguls, yes. We could jump out of. We're on the third floor in our apartment, so if it gets enough, that'd be a fun jump.
Yeah.
We just moved our youngest kid into an apartment in Brooklyn, and we were getting
where in
reacquainted
Brooklyn
with
area?
they're in Little Haiti on Nostrand.
Yeah, Nostrand.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting reacquainted with trash delivery as trash pickup is put it on the street.
Yep.
Maybe bagged, probably bagged, maybe in a can, maybe not. And you just kind of dance around it.
Yep. All right, so Jay, you've got a new book coming out in March I would say a bit of a follow-up, even though it's a bit of a different direction, to your Unwanted book that was so revolutionary. This book is called Desire: The Longings Inside Us and the New Science of How We Love, Heal, and Grow. So we're really excited to hear from you this morning about how you came to write this. Why was this the next step?
And before that, if you just, for listeners who may be not familiar, you just give a little background on kind of where you are and how you got where you are.
Sure. I am currently in New York City. We moved from Seattle in 2020, so moved right in the middle of the pandemic into Manhattan when everybody was moving out. So it was a pretty wild time to move in, but got deeply acquainted with all strange things New York, from like manhole explosions to we got a car a couple years in and had rats eat all of the coils inside of our engine, and a couple $1,000 mechanic bill. Manhattan's been an adventure. I've loved it, I've loathed it, and kind of anywhere in betweens. But currently in New York, went out to Seattle right after undergrad to pursue my master's in counseling, master of divinity at the Seattle School. Met my wife, Heather, there. She's also a psychotherapist, trained at the Seattle School. And so, probably at some point in 2018, 2019, I was mowing my grass and had an old lawnmower. And just, you've probably seen that scene of like, you're just trying to pull the thing to try and get it to start, and it's not starting. And was just like, this feels like a microcosm of my life at this point. Like, it should work. We've got great friends, a church, everything on paper is here, but there was a desire for something new. I grew up on the East Coast in the Washington, D.C. area. My work had been bringing me out to the East Coast a lot more. And so we thought, what if we just moved to New York, and even if we give it 2 years, we still have lived in a great city, even if we hate it.
Wow.
So that was kind of why we left. But, I grew up as a pastor's kid, was the third of 4 kids, so middle child-ish. And part of what I would say about that is, my older sister was much more of the rebel in the family. She kind of created a petri dish of misery for my parents from time to time. My older brother took more of the philosophical rebellion route, like was reading Nietzsche at 16, always critiquing my parents' philosophy on a lot of things. And so I kind of grew up both as a good kid, but also that was the provisional self that I built was, the more tuned I am to my mom, to my dad, the more good I am, the more that this family runs a little bit better. And I think my parents could use a little break with me. And so there were, a lot of things that were innate with me in terms of what I cared for, but also this kind of began a 2-step dance between, managing my image, knowing what I needed to present to the world around me, but then also just having a lot of unresolved issues and dynamics inside of me. So kind of to use your all's language of, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, don't entirely know what it means, have a hunch, but I had no language to talk about Friday and Saturday. It was always, you can maybe mention it, but move very quickly into a Sunday story of Easter redemption. And that's how and so I think moving out to Seattle, hearing Dan Allender speak for the first time was like, this is the first person that has told me the truth about Friday and Saturday. And I was just hungry to be able to kind of connect. Like, I know there's a goodness, there's a longing for redemption, for beauty on this earth, but also what the hell am I supposed to do with all these stories that I've never known how to talk about that happened to me? And then all the unwanted behaviors, disordered relationship to food and my body. So there were just so much stuff that I needed to address out in Seattle, and so grateful for that time. So.
Well, and what a great thing that you were able, even at that young age, to have that gnawing, that knowledge. This fast forwarding to Sunday, everything's good, and I'm in right down, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I've got the joy, joy, joy. Is that capturing everything?
Even as you say that. Yes. Yeah.
We're probably raised on some of the same Sunday school songs and stuff. We were only a little bit ahead of you, but that is a challenge, and that's one of the things we'll talk about in your book. It's into is how do we reckon with heartache, disappointment, and without just slapping a spiritual Band-Aid on it and saying, well, all things work for glory, let's go forward. That rings hollow the longer you live and the more you actually get acquainted with other people and their stories and your own experiences.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm curious, Jay, why do you think there is such a pull to live only talking about Sunday or giving very little time and attention to Friday, Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think of, the classic Jung reality of like Carl Jung, like you can't take anyone further than you have been yourself. You would say that to, other psychiatrists. So I think, the longer I've worked with leaders in my world, it's a sense of like, they don't know what to do with Friday and Saturday. Yes. Sunday, if trauma is real, like again, Friday is a day of trauma, sexual abuse, likely from what many scholars are saying about what Jesus' body underwent with regard to soldiers. his own physical trauma. And so when you go through trauma, it's that sense of, I can't trust the ground underneath me. I can't trust God. I can't trust my body. I can't trust anything. And I don't know what to do with the questions of Saturday. Like, just imagine like a disciple. Like, I've followed this guy for 3 years and now he's dead. And the entire thing that I've invested my entire life work in and left my career behind to do, now he's dead. What do I do now? And so Sunday kind of gives us some sense of, I get to bypass that. I don't have to deal with those questions and everything is good. And that's what trauma creates, is I need some level of certainty. I need solid ground to be able to understand this. And that's why I think it moves to, okay, here's language that, overcomes Friday, overcomes all of that, to be able to just move into Sunday. So,
and I was thinking, I totally agree with everything you said, that it gives us a false sense of like solid ground under our feet. And we often don't have, like you said, anywhere to go with the questions. And so I'm reading a book right now about a pastor who walked away from the faith for a season between childhood and current vocation. But part of the story was that he began questioning some of the theology at a young age. And none of his leaders knew what to do with him. So they kept dismissing him from groups and calling him disruptive. And so we've got a puppy joining us who wanted to scream in the other room. So this is our newest addition now that we are full into empty nesting.
Yes, and what is puppy's name?
Podcast appearance.
Yes.
Yes, welcome.
So,
is there anything that he would like to say, or she would like to say?
What would you like to say, Wensleydale? What would you like to say?
He probably
had
has
a lot
things to say about desire and being shut down and not being able to do what he wants.
Yes. I want to belong. Bring me in.
Exactly.
That captures him very well. He is definitely a belonger.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, I just always like to ask that question of, why do we try to bypass? And I think there's something too about trying to defend a reputation of God that we don't quite trust ourselves, because we haven't had to do the mud wrestling in the dark, in the wake of the trauma, in the aloneness. And so we're trying to pretend we know who he is. And I think that only comes through the mud wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think growing up, there was always the sense of kind of like the darker the night, the brighter the stars. And it sounded true, but there was no like, let's actually enter into the darkness. Let's enter into the particularities of what happened. And so, I think I remember one of my friends in grad school did his master's thesis on essentially connecting Holy Week to our life experiences. He had a mom that died when he was 12 years old, had a lot of kind of just grief that he was walking through. So his master's thesis was essentially walking people through, Monday, Thursday, day of betrayal, Friday, day of trauma, Saturday, day of emptiness, and was really involved with that project with him. And that's part of what so many of our late night beers were about, is how do we connect like these crucifixions that we have all been through, these traumas that we have undergone, and really connect them to the story. So I think part of what we started working through is like, we thought that we were only being faithful to the gospel when we talked about Sunday, but it was like, no, our ability to bear witness to Friday, bear witness to what Saturday is, actually makes something known about who Jesus is that I had never really conceptualized in that way before. And I remember taking that into therapy of like just my friend's integrity to say, this is my Friday, this is my Saturday. And I was like, whoa, you entered into particularities that I've never entered before. And so that was revolutionary to me of like, no, it all matters. And Sunday is beautiful, but like you can't name resurrection if you have not articulated and entered into Saturday and Friday. It just,
Yeah.
it trivializes the very
Yes.
trauma of the class.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can relate to, I mean, I think the longing, the hope, the desire for restoration, and even for certainty to some degree. I've been learning to realize first I have that. And then I remember where I was actually. I was listening to your good friend and ours, Adam Young's podcast, and he said something that just stopped me in my tracks. He said, you know, if you grew up with a fragmented self from different traumatic things, you're going to crave certainty, and theological certainty offers it and it's like crack. And I'm like, shut up now. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But it's so true. I'm like, okay, no wonder I've gravitated towards this or that provided answers. A big part of my story is one of my heroes was Encyclopedia Brown, because he was the kid who listened and solved all the problems. And I want to be that guy. I even had a friend who called me Encyclopedia Osborne. I'm like, yes, that's, you know, but that led to this. Oh, I will find certainty. I'll find rightness. I'll find the answers. But some of that is bypassing and skipping over the questions and the questions of suffering and things like that, which of course life brings you if you don't go there yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a helpful exercise to say, like, what was your Encyclopedia Brown? Or like, for me, it was the Deader the Better in terms of theologians, like read your Edwards, your Luther and Calvin, and just became such an asshole in college due to, you know, had all this unaddressed trauma, all this two-stepping of being in a pastor's family, but exactly that thing of like, this feels really good to be able to just think about election and tulip and all these categories. Was like, yes, like this feels so much better than fragmentation, than questions, than angst, than doubt. So it was a pill that I took.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was baptized. It was a baptized pill. So
a baptism. Yes. No joke.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite clients are teens who have been through very hard life situations, and they are in a Christian context, and they come to me with all of their questions of why and how and who is this God, and helping them craft what essentially becomes their own psalm around a theology of their particular suffering. Of, you know, what would they want to ask God, and why is it hard to sing this song or that song? Why are they drawn to this song or that song? And what's deep in their heart that needs tending to, rather than feeding them more scripture in an attempt to quell what are very legitimate screams of protest.
Indeed. Yeah.
So I think we would love for you to tell us how you knew this was the next thing you wanted to write about. Desire.
Yeah. Yep. So first book was Unwanted. And, you know, part of what I was trying to do with Unwanted was to change some of the evangelical conversation, Christian conversation on how do we approach issues like infidelity, unwanted porn use. And so part of, you know, what I had been reading was kind of some of the classic, like Every Man's Battle stuff. And, you know, there's some really troubling direct quotes in that line. Like, you know, if your husband is struggling with porn, present your body as a merciful vial of methadone to him. Like, if he wants to ogle you coming out of the shower, like, let him ogle you because he needs to find it. And so there were all these like really problematic ways of engaging this, which I would essentially just break down into lust management. Like, it's internet monitoring, it's accountability, it's any system that kind of doesn't really have to address arousal, understand why those fantasies, those desires first appealed to us. And so really trying to do a lot of research instead of just bring good clinical theory or good theology to it, but really trying to get a sense of, you know, why do we do what we do? And so did a original research project that looked at essentially finding that we could predict not just do people watch porn or how much porn do people watch, but like what types of porn, what types of affair partners will people pursue based on the unaddressed realities of their life. And even pre-launch of that book, I wrote a blog article on just the meaning of our sexual fantasies. And I think I got somewhere like 100 requests for therapy from
Oh
that
my
blog and
gosh.
through the phone. And the writing was fine, the concept was good, but I think what struck me, and I think the nerve that it struck, was like it resisted two of the paradigms of our day, which are just like suppress those things are bad, or just kind of
Yes.
normalize these things. Like people got really curious about their sexual fantasies. And to this day, we still get random inquiries from people of like, here's my porn search, or here's my arousal template. Can Jay interpret it for me?
Oh my
And
word.
they'll offer like $5, or can I Venmo like $10 for this? It's like, are you kidding me? But I knew that there was like curiosity around like, why do I do what we do? And that's what I loved about that book. But then we started getting a lot of other people that would write in, and they would say like, okay, yeah, you addressed out of control sexual desire, but I feel like I need a defibrillator for my sex life. Like I can't find any desire. And so then kind of staying with the category of sex, but then as the clients that I was working with, they would have insight about their patterns, they would want to outgrow it and would find some success. But then all these other questions came in of like, so I still don't know how to do intimacy with my partner. How does this connect to now that I'm not sabotaging my life in this way? I don't know how to move towards my career. And so as I started paying attention to just the patterns, the problems that people were experiencing, I realized like this isn't just about getting insight into one problematic area. This is like most of us have never received a roadmap for how to understand desire itself. And it's this mysterious, powerful force that has the potential to turn us into the best version of ourselves or the worst version of ourselves. But I think that's where most of us live in this civil war of our relationship to desire. Like, I know I need to want something, but also wanting creates havoc in my marriage. The proverb of unfulfilled, anytime we have hope for something that is unfulfilled, it's going to make our heart sick. And yet we also don't want to live depressed and just kind of feeling like something in us is dying inside every day of our life. So most of us kind of, modulate some level of, I don't want to feel too much, but I also don't want to feel dead. And that's what we end up calling a life is, a 3 out of 10 on the desire scale. And I was like, no, that is not the meaning of life. And so all that to say, just paying attention to the problems, the patterns that we're finding, and what did really readers need after Unwanted. So I've kind of referred to desire as both like a prequel and a sequel to Unwanted of
I like that.
That makes sense.
Before and after. So
as you're describing that sort of duality in the Civil War, and I'm going to come back to that language because I really like that in the book. I'm just thinking of where my brain went was that just the conflicting messages, even within the Christian church, about desire. For example, delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. But then there's other verses like, but watch out because the heart is deceitful above all things. So you're going to desire bad things. And well, if they're really God's desires, you'll get them. And, you're off to the races. Like, how do I make sense of this?
It's overwhelming.
Overwhelming. Yep. And then you come maybe in a family system where like you wanted something and your mom, your dad never knew how to work with those raw desires and just kind of made it bad or selfish. And so then you kind of went off to college, went off into life, and then all of a sudden you have all these social media influencers that are like, eat, pray, love your way through life. What is it that you want to do with this one wild and precious life that you've been given? And they sound so good. Like they are like oxygen to us that have been deprived of desire and pleasure and goodness. And then it's like, wait, but now I'm like working with a Ferrari and I have no idea how to drive. No one gave me any lessons of like where I should go with these desires, where to direct them, how to intentionally form them. And so I think it's just, we've been screwed by, Christian culture and progressive culture with regard to desire. So all of my clients are coming in, I would say, wildly underdeveloped in terms of kind of developing this mysterious powerhouse called desire.
Yes, wildly underdeveloped is a great way to put it. I think one of the things I appreciated the most about Unwanted in particular was at the end where you're talking about, look, the answer is not kill off desire and shut yourself down and be ascetic. And I flashback to all the different things I used to do growing up to try to, tamp down or chill or whatever, freeze parts of me or ways but your invitation to awaken desire, like actually you're made to long for comfort, for somebody to see you and want to be in your presence and to give you goodness. Fanning your good desires into flame and getting better at tending to those instead of just stop the bad stuff, put a rubber band on your wrist and smack it or whatever. That was radical. And it felt like a very fresh voice saying that there's something good in your heart and desire. Look at all the sources that have warped and changed and twisted it. But getting back to that sort of what is the good essence, what is God making us for, and what does He invite us to, even without a promise of it's going to work out perfectly all the time.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think of like erotic energy, not just in terms of genital arousal, but erotic energy is often in contrast to thanatos, which is death energy. So eroticism is that sense of like it's life force. It's
Yes.
like when you think about your life, like it doesn't just have to be sexual arousal. Sometimes we think way too much about desire in terms of the bedroom. But it's like, no, like where do you feel alive? And that could be baking, that could be singing a song, that could be doing yoga or on a mountain, but really connecting to where does my body, where does my soul really feel some sense of vitality? That's so essential in order to kind of develop our relationship to desire, is to recognize like, where does my body come alive? Where does my soul come alive? Annie Dillard, often used to say like these bell-like moments. And so she would say, I never knew I was a bell until the moment I was lifted up and struck. And those are desire questions of, when was the last time like the bells were ringing inside you and you're like, this is the work that I want to be doing in the world, this is the sexual experience that I want to keep having, this is kind of like personal growth or therapy, healing, integration. Like all of those are bell-like moments. And part of what people discover is, to borrow from the geography of the United States, like at least when we were in Washington, you would have the rainforest out near the Olympic Mountains, but then you'd have something of like a desert in eastern Washington. And so even one state had so much diverse terrain. So when you think about the US and forests and mountains and deserts, that is similar to the terrain of the human heart. And so often we just think about desire as it relates to sex or desire as it relates to crushing our career, but it's so much more big and vast than that. And so that was part of what we did a lot of research on, and just trying to understand like, what is this thing called desire and how can we develop it even more than we currently do?
The Surviving Saturday podcast is brought to you by Nurture Counseling PLLC, a counseling, teaching, and training center based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We help families flourish one story at a time. Nurture Counseling provides counseling intensive for couples, conflict resolution coaching, story work groups, seminars, workshops, and retreats to provide a safe and welcoming context for exploring the agonizing experiences of pain, brokenness, and evil that disrupt our lives, and that God often uses to nurture deeper trust and intimacy with Him and with each other. You can find us online at www.nurturecounseling.net.